Hi, everybody, and welcome to the February Inspiring Tails session. And this evening, we'll be talking with Tracy Brind. Inspiring Tails is just exactly about that. We all love a good tale, don't we? And most people who have come to the world of animal wellness have some particular tale that inspired them in particular. Some dog or horse or somebody that desperately needed some help, and that led them on this path, because that's what our animals do for us. They lead us down the path of holism, of becoming whole in every aspect. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be hearing from Tracy, her story, her personal story of how she became an animal wellness practitioner, and then she'll share with us the skills she has, etc. Useful information as well. So Tracy, welcome.
Thank you, Niana. Lovely to be here.
I'm very excited about this evening because I have some good questions for you, particularly around the animal-centered education that you do, which is something I'm not very familiar with. Actually, I'd have to say that you introduced me to it. I hadn't really come across it until then. So, but let's just start with, how did you get into this?
Very, very good question. I often ask myself, why did I get into this? It all started a very, very long time ago. At the tender age of about 12, I decided that my life was destined to be working with animals. So at 18, I joined our local veterinary centre and became a veterinary nurse for 20 odd years, and worked locally in a practice at home, which was a marvellous start on my animal journey, really. I'd always had animals growing up as a child. My uncle was a beekeeper, so I was also involved with looking after the bees sometimes. I was lucky enough to have small caged furry animals when I was at home. So really grew up with animals, had the opportunity to work with horses as well. But I'd always followed a very holistic approach to myself and my family and my animal family's welfare. So there was a little bit of conflict between my veterinary career that was very sciencey and very pharmaceutical, to then getting home and sort of dumping all that at the door and then not doing anything pharmaceutical for myself and my family. Anyway, that sort of went on for a number of years, and I decided at a point that I was going to come out of the veterinary profession, and I at that point was going to home educate my daughter. So we did very many years on home education. That gave me a whole different side of looking at behaviour.
Okay, well so I want to back you up for a second. I have a question to ask you. Sure. about the veterinary practice. So I'm guessing that this was more of like an old-fashioned veterinary practice, that people, the vets actually knew their clients and took care of everybody in a slightly different way, that it wasn't quite as, that you had some space there to do your stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very old-fashioned practice, I guess, at the time. It was the hub of the community. Everybody knew the vet. Everybody knew me. Unfortunately, I couldn't get away with anything in our local community. Yes, I had space to be able to do further education around my veterinary career, and I had my own clients, which was lovely.
That's fantastic. It's such a different world, isn't it? It's just because that is healing, because otherwise it can be a bit soul destroying, can't it, to be an animal lover and to be in the veterinary business?
Yeah, it absolutely can. But I was lucky. I had a great boss and great clients.
Yeah. And fantastic for your daughter to have that as a background for her home education.
Yeah. I like to keep telling her she's very lucky.
Is she into animals now? Is she?
She helps us take care of our family dogs, but not as a career. I don't think she'll ever perhaps do that, having seen the hours that I worked, I think.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Something else.
Good. Okay, so we're in home education at the moment. Sorry, I interrupted your flow there.
Sure. So daughter went through home education and I came out the other side and decided to then pick up the reins of my dog training and behavioural work that I'd also done part-time alongside my veterinary career. So did a few years working with a local dog trainer. She was very holistic. We had a pool there for the dogs and a gym and all sorts of different things. But then I really decided that zoopharmacognosy, the botanical self-healing, was the way that I really wanted to go, because I'd been working with that for a number of years.
How did you get into that then? What was your pathway into the botanical?
We've all got a story, haven't we, to tell?
Yes, we do. We do. And we all love a story. So share, come on.
So, my story starts with my English Springer Spaniel, Bradstock. Now, Bradstock came and joined our family nearly 14 years ago now. And he was a typical English Springer Spaniel, full of energy. But at 6 months of age, I was sure that his behaviour wasn't quite normal. So I discussed it with friends and some colleagues in the dog training world. And I was pretty much told, what do you expect from an English Springer Spaniel? You know, they're high energy, but he had more than high energy. He had compulsive tendencies. He was chasing lights on water. He was headbutting the wall when he saw lights on the wall. Very over-aroused all the time, very, very over-aroused. So in the end, I got together with a colleague who's a behaviourist, and she confirmed that his behaviour was indeed not of a normally organised dog. So I happened one day to go to a local dog club meeting, and there was a lovely gentleman there talking about zoopharmacognosy. This was many years ago, and I sat there, you know, typically with the sort of like, oh yeah, right, what's him about? What can we do? I don't think so. But there was something he just said in one of the things. And I chatted with him afterwards, and he said, look, he said, I come up against non-believers all the time. He said, why don't you give it a try? So I invited him to come and see Bradstock. And Bradstock was a dog that never, ever sat still, particularly when there were strangers in the house. Mike waved his magic wand and Bradstock stopped, and he sat down and he curled up and he went to sleep. And I couldn't believe it. I said, goodness, there must be something in this. We worked with Bradstock and managed to really help him cope with his tendencies. It gave us a bit of a lease of life as well, because it was really hard dealing with a dog that was differently organised.
It's hard work, especially a Springer, because they're already full on, and when they're disorganised, oh my gosh. And it does seem to be those really highly you know, their nervous systems are anyway overwired, aren't they? Absolutely. So it's quite easy for them to shatter. But I have to say, I just do love hearing people's first time stories. Yeah. Because that moment when you look at it and you go, oh my goodness, you know, I used to always say, look, I can stand on a stage and go blah, 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 blah for half an hour. And people, then I offer an oil, and that's all that people are going to remember. It doesn't matter what I say before that. I could speak absolute rubbish, but the moment that they see the animal for the first time interacting with an oil, it's just like, oh, ta-da!
Yeah.
Cool. Go on.
That really started my journey. You know, I've got to know more about this zoopharma. What? I couldn't even pronounce it, let alone anything else.
Yeah.
So luckily I live quite close to Caroline Ingraham, only an hour or so's drive away. So I did some courses with Caroline, started to use on my own dogs. I then did a few more courses. I did some work with yourself and with Isla Fishburne, and then ended up deciding that this was it. This was going to be my career. I loved it so much. And then went and studied with Rachel Windsor-Knott, and qualified with Rachel a few years ago, and decided then to jack in my job. This was it. Holistic work with animals was what I was going to do for a career. So jacked in my job and set up my business the week before lockdown.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, Tracy.
The
Anyway,
very
that's such a big moment. Such a big moment when you say, okay, that's it. I'm stepping out. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I felt like I'd stepped into something. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it was honestly
might have smelled funny. But
indeed. But at that point, I decided that what I'd got to do was throw myself into online work. Now that pretty much frightened the life out of me. What was Zoom? Never heard of Zoom. How was I going to possibly do botanical healing over the internet? I've got to be there in person, surely. But I was encouraged by some really great business advisors at the time. There was great advice going on during lockdown about how we could all take our business online anyway. So I was really, really lucky, and I jumped on board, and I was so grateful that people jumped on board with me, and I can work with clients. And I just look around the room here and I've got some of my fabulous clients sitting here.
Oh,
some of them that were with me right at the beginning. Denise was with me right at the beginning. I think she was one of my first clients, and goodness knows what her experience was with me online for the first time.
Well, obviously she's still with you, so it could not have been that bad. Yeah. Oh well, that's quite a story. And tell me something then. I'm going to ask a different question of you. That moment where you went, okay, I'm going to step out. What do you think it takes? What would you say to somebody who's like sitting there going, I don't know, can I do this? Should I do this? It's scary to do this. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give to them, or what would you say to them?
Yeah, it's a leap of faith for sure. I was very lucky in the fact that I had some savings behind me. So I knew that actually I could take my time just starting getting going in those few months. But I guess it would be to really look at what you want from the work that you want to do, and just be really mindful that you can disappear into your own business, and it can be all consuming. Many, many hours have I sat at this computer for 12 hours, 14 hours a day. And it just gets consuming. So it's about having boundaries as well, about where you want your life to go from here.
That's a really good piece of advice, because it is all consuming. You think, oh, I'm going to work for myself. You know who the hardest taskmaster is? Yourself, right? and it's really, you have to start, especially when you're working with animals and you're helping with people, you have to be very clear about, no, I need to take that time for myself. I mean, honestly, that was one of the drivers for me setting up the lounge, because I know how many of us are out there working on our own, doing our own thing, helping people, and to be able to support each other in that is really important, I think. I mean, I think that was probably the main driver for me, is let's work together, let's do this together, girls, because you can get lost out there and it can become not fun, it can become overwhelming. So we want to keep our love, our heart in there, that's really important, to make space for that. Great piece of advice. Good. So look at you, here you are today.
Here I am.
Doing what you love. Right, no regrets. And so there's a piece here that we're missing though, because you got your botanicals, you're on the computer in lockdown building your business. Yay for you. How did ACE come in?
So when actually before lockdown, I realized that my lovely Bradstock was aging and he was having some skeletal issues. So we managed to find a really great practitioner locally, a vet physio, who was also very much involved with ACE, animal-centered education. And she introduced me to some techniques that I could do to help Brad, firstly, take life a little slower, be a little bit more easy on himself and his family that he was living with, please, and just to really enable me to look at him with a fresh pair of eyes, to be able to look at the struggles he was having and to see what I could do about that. So I got really involved with that, and me being me, having to know things, I couldn't just be content at watching my dog doing ACE and free work. I needed to know the nitty gritty. So I decided I'd like to go on and do some courses and learn a little bit more, and found the lovely Sarah Fisher of Tilly Farm.
And so that was that online then, or you were there going there? She's also not far from you, actually, is she?
Yeah, no, I'm really lucky where I'm sort of in the middle of everywhere, so it's great. So yes, Sarah was online at the time. So we did first part of her course, which was called the Dog Detective course, online, and it was introducing us to the wonderful world of ACE, to animal-centered education, and to one particular component of that called free work. So I know you wanted to know a little bit more, Nyana, about
free work you get on the YouTube. What else have we got going on here? But no, I want to know about it. Tell us about what it is.
So animal-centered education was the brainchild of Sarah Fisher.
Wait, I'm going to cut in with a little factoid here.
Yeah.
When I trained in aromatherapy, I was doing it in exchange for teaching on the course about behaviour and animals and behaviour. So on that Caroline Ingram course at the time, Sarah was also teaching. So it was Sarah and I as a sort of the behaviour side of the course. So we go way back.
You go way back. Great. So she needs no introduction to you then, Anna. But to anybody that doesn't know her, she's the most wonderful lady that has really dedicated a lot of her life to animals and looking at how she can support them. And it's not just dogs. She takes in rescue horses at a place near Bath, Tilly Farm near Bath, and actually gives the experience to all animals. So free work can actually be adapted to any animal that you want to work with. We've got people at the moment working with tortoises with free work, and guinea pigs and chickens and all sorts. So animal-centered education looks at putting the animal right in the centre of what goes on. And basically it's to give choice. And it's something that we give very little to our animals. We all do, sitting here in the lounge. We all give our animals choice, I know. But to the wider public, and certainly to the clients I work with sometimes, that we have to sort of educate them into what choice can look like. And part of ACE is free work, which gives animals and their nervous system a different response really to things that normally go on. So if you have an animal that is perhaps a little bit shy and is worried about the world, then we can set up what we call different stations, which would be areas where the dog can visit, which would be an area maybe to lick something off the surface, to snuffle through a snuffle mat, or a box with some tissue paper in, or a towel, in order to get food, if that's what motivates your dog, and for them to have a sensory experience around that. So it might be, if they're licking, then licking, we know, promotes endorphins and helps the dog to calm. It also helps these big TMJ muscles to relax, which can get really stuck when they're so very anxious. So it gives them that slightly different experience. It can also help dogs that are really fast to slow down. I've got a Labrador called Millie, and Millie is so incredibly fast, it's unbelievable. And food lights her up big way. So we would introduce her to free work, to some of these different stations, and she'd whiz around at 20 miles an hour, just grabbing everything as she could on the way past. So we had to slow down that experience. And in slowing down that experience, what we can do is look at the posture and the gait of the dog as they move around the area to give us a little bit more information if we are suspicious that there might be some skeletal issues going on that is causing some issues, which we can gather information for other animal practitioners that we may have to be involved with, the vet physio, to be able to say, look, this is what I've observed. Maybe here's a video that I can show you, because actually what happens is when we take our dogs in for a physical exam at the vets, the dog is often so terrified as they hold themselves And we know that they have a pain in their back leg. They've been limping for a week, but when they get to the vets, miraculously, it's disappeared.
Yeah.
And they have that survival instinct, don't they, to not show pain.
Yeah, plus adrenaline can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so ACE work doesn't directly work on the physical side of things itself. It's more about resetting the nervous system and helping them to learn and to engage with the world in a way that might make them feel more comfortable, which in itself obviously relaxes the body. But you're not doing, I mean, it's, when I knew Sarah, she was like the T-touch person of England. Yeah, that's where what she was doing on Caroline's course as well. She was teaching, or the T-touch. So I'm just wondering, did that cross over? Did the actual touching cross over, or is it all about activities?
Yeah, so it is about activities, and that's one modality within ACE. So the other parts of ACE are indeed touch.
Okay.
And she's done an adaptation from T-touch to be able to give, again, the nervous system a different response by mindfully touching our animals. Because, you know, so many times we just stroke our animals at night. We just, you know, it's lovely. They're sitting there. We just stroke them from top to bottom. And actually, are they enjoying that? You know, and if we can look beyond that, and are they giving us signals which actually, maybe they're not enjoying it that much? And could we be more mindful with that touch rather than just stroking, which is lovely and does help to calm them and us? Could we be doing something more mindful with a little bit of T-touch, which would help their physical body and their emotions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, I mean, that's one of my things too. I mean, I think all of us who get involved with the animals is just, and you go, wait, you got to be there. You got to be present. It's acupressure does it, T-touch does it. Any awareness does that. Mindfulness, which just changes the quality of the touch. It just changes the quality of the connection. And it's so important. And it's such a simple thing that people can do, that everybody can do. So, yeah. Okay, so that's really good. So you would offer ACE to animals that are nervous, disturbed, scared, aggressive, in pain, all of those things, sort of thing.
Absolutely all of the above. And for dogs that may be puppies that need experience of the world and different things, be really useful for puppies.
Right, yeah.
Be awesome for adolescent dogs, those ones that are in their non-thinking brain that just whiz around, you know, at a million miles an hour all the time, leaping off the furniture and what have you. It can give them a really good experience, and we can involve things within free work that they really need to do, like climbing and, you know, all those types of things that adolescents and the younger dogs need to do.
And what about reactive dogs that are reacting to other dogs, or just reacting like in a heightened fear pattern?
Yep, so really good for them too, because again, it gives that nervous system a different response. And, you know, if we consider the bucket analogy for stress, the lower the bucket can be with stress before they step out the door to meet whatever their triggers might be, the better response we're going to have. So free work will help them empty their bucket.
Right. Okay. So that's really cool. So you integrate, you do the aromatics and the ACE, and you can do the ACE work online as well, right? That's
yeah, absolutely. I've actually separated the two. So I don't use botanicals within free work because I found a bit of a conflict, because there's often food involved with free work, and it was taking the animals away from the relaxation of the botanicals to go and seek out food. Right. So I do have just a couple of meaningful items in a botanical session, but it's just for them to go and process. So it's not about the food, it's about them being able to stick their nose in a snuffle mat and take themselves away for a bit.
So would you work with the botanicals first and then continue with some ACE work, or how does that flow for you? Is there
it can go that way, or it can be done on different days. Depends what's meaningful for the dog.
Right. And are there some dogs that you're going to say, oh, this is an aromatics dog and this is an ACE work dog, or?
There certainly are some dogs that are not suited to one or the other, or are better suited to one or the other. And, you know, some dogs are not food orientated, so sometimes struggle, or the guardians struggle a little bit with free work because it tends to be very food orientated, but there are different ways that we can use natural scent for the dogs to engage with in a free work session.
Right. Okay, well, I think I finally understand ACE work, which is great, because I was not quite catching the concept. And I could be a bit slow with these things sometimes. I'm like you. I need to really understand something and what the sort of what it's based on and what the intention is. But the resetting the nervous system, I understand that, and that's it's very much a T-touch thing too. It's probably the first time I actually considered conscious touch was learning from Linda Tillington-Jones with the T-touches, because you have to do that circle that goes all the way, a quarter of the way further on. So you have to really be present, and that was like, oh, that was a light bulb moment for me many moons ago. So yeah, great. Good. All right, we're coming up to the end of the half hour here. I'm going to ask you this one thing. I'm going to say, what is your top tip that you could give to people for something that people could do right now that would increase the wellness for their animals? Offer them wellness right now?
Yeah. So the first thing I always say is choice.
Right.
Give the animal choice. If they are allowed to choose what botanicals they'd like, choose sometimes which way to walk, when to sniff, it just brings in a little bit more interest, I think, and give them a little bit of control over what they do. And for the guardians to breathe. We forget to breathe, particularly with these dogs that can be a bit over the top. Just breathe. It helps. It changes everything.
That's such a good tip. That's really, honestly, the breathing thing, really important. Choice, obviously, we all live and die for choice here, and it does make such a difference. It's that self-control, isn't it? It's that self autonomy that's so important for every being. And that just by making those little choices, and it's just so good for the connection too, as well, it helps the human breathe, because you can just go, oh yeah, I don't have to be in complete control of everything all the time here. That's really great. Okay, there's somebody just making a comment here, which is, working with Tracy has really changed my relationship with my reactive boy. A much better bond, and we actually enjoy our walks now. So there you go, Leslie. That's somebody to reach out for your reactive boy. That was Leslie that asked the question earlier. Great. So did that bring us up to the present moment? It did, didn't it? Tracy can be reached at you live in Worcester.
Yes, just south of Worcester, in the middle of the country, pretty much.
Yeah. But you have Canine Senses is your...
Canine Senses is my business, indeed.
And you have a website. What's the best way to reach you? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Either by email or on Facebook or via the website, doesn't really matter. I could drop some details into to you, Nyana, if you wanted to attach it to the recording, or
just stick it under it'll be up there, and you can put it in the comments after when it's up.
Okay, yeah.
How to get hold of you, etc. As something flashed through my mind to say, and it's completely gone out of it, but hopefully it'll come back about that. Never mind.
Oh yes, I'll come to the Azores, Leslie. Yes, please.
Oh, you and Leslie would have a blast out there. Oh my gosh.
I've decided actually I need to go back to in-person work, because I've had a contact from New Zealand, from Australia, and from the USA this week. So I think
there you go.
Back to in person. So the Azores will be on the world trip.
I would go to the Azores, forget the others. Oh, maybe New Zealand, but yeah. Stop in on the Azores on the way to New Zealand. Okay, and how is Brad still with you? Brad's still with you.
Brad is still with us. Yes, he has various lumps and bumps now, but he is very much still with us, and very much, if he sees one of those grey furry tree rats, he's still very quick.
Right. Good. All right then. So thank you so much for being here with us this evening, Tracy, and sharing your lovely story. I do love that. And finally getting me to understand ACE work. That's a weight off my mind. If anybody watches this after the fact, not live, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and we will get back to you with answers. And that's it for now. Oh yeah, the other way you can get hold of Tracy is in the lounge. You can direct message her here in the lounge. So cool. There you go. That's the thing that slipped my mind. There we go. All right, everybody, have a lovely evening. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again soon. Next activity in the lounge is meditation with Lisa. It's all happening. All right, friends. Goodbye.
Thank you, Nyana. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Tracy. Bye.